I'm Michael Jordan, and I'm here with Hillary. I said that because I know that Donald Trump couldn't tell the difference.
And I always liked Kareem. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar making a joke at Donald Trump's expense. We're continuing now on the Steve Malzberg Show, your Newsmax TV tag team, J.D. Hayworth of the National TV News Desk, and Steve Malzberg telecommuting as we are in the process of getting a brand new Newsmax New York. You know, yes. Steve, we used to be in the sports business. We were sportscasters. And boy, if you look how just in general, especially in terms of sports journalism, but some superstar athletes, how far to the left people in sports and sportscasting and sports writing have lurched. I guess we shouldn't be surprised to see Kareem there, although that joke kind of smacks of the old, just imagine. You can always use this test. Imagine if a Republican had said that about Hillary. What, are you accusing her of saying that all black people look alike? I mean, you can just imagine the torrent of criticism that would be forthcoming.
It's unjustified. It was uncalled for. There's no reason to believe it. And not only that, Al Gore, and I read you from a report here, and I remember hearing this at the time, 1998. Al Gore, after the Chicago Bulls won their championship, it says their 8th championship, Al Gore seemed to think Michael Jackson had more to do with it. He said, quote, "I tell you that Michael Jackson is unbelievable, isn't he? He's just unbelievable." So he said Michael Jackson instead of Michael Jordan. So that irony struck me because I remembered it immediately, that he should have been talking about Al Gore, not Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's very true. Although in this case, perhaps I'm more indulgent because I will let, I guess we can give Al the benefit of the doubt, not on global warming and not on the billions he's been able to rip off, but you know, he didn't have a chance to check his own invention, the internet. Well, from Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson to our special guest, as we are joined now via telephone by political commentator Michael Reagan. Michael, of course, the author of the great new book, Lessons My Father Taught Me: The Strength, Integrity, and Faith of Ronald Reagan. And you can always find and follow Michael on Twitter, his handle @ReaganWorld. Michael, thanks for coming in. We've got, what they used to call this in professional wrestling, this would be a Texas tag team, 3 guys, lumberjack match. Thanks for making this tag team a trio tonight.
There you go.
That's
there
it?
You go, yeah. Fresh in from Omaha.
Just came to the territory to make a name for himself. Hey, this whole thing we're now hearing on a Friday, the FBI saying it's examining all sorts of hacks into the Democrats. Hillary's campaign, Democrat National Committee, we had the WikiLeaks, and now we're hearing the DCCC, the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee. What do you make of all this, Michael?
Yeah, I think it's great news for Donald Trump. I mean, it really is part of his campaign. He's been saying that for a long period of time, and now you see FBI and other people involved in this to see about the hacks. I think we all know they were hacked. I mean, I know that a couple of years ago, when this was all coming out about Hillary's private email service, that basically the Russians were finding a way into the other areas through her private email service. And I think you're going to ultimately find that was the venue, that was the artery. Then, in fact, the Russians or whomever it was found their way into all the other areas of the Democrat Party. It was through that private email.
Yeah, and the sad thing, Michael, well, first of all, nobody wants to see a foreign government, hack into anything here in this country. But I hear these people with righteous indignation saying, "How dare a foreign government try to influence our democratic elections?" And of course, we know for a fact that Barack Obama, using our taxpayer money, tried to do the same exact thing in defeating Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel.
Well, wait a minute. You not only have the $350,000, but let me take you back a few years to, when Tip O'Neill and also Ted Kennedy, both went to the Russian leadership in this country, under Gromyko, to see if he would have the Russians do something that would terribly embarrass Ronald Reagan, so that in fact Al Gore would end up becoming president of the United States of America. And where that all started is when Ted Kennedy went to the Russians to try to get them to do something to embarrass Jimmy Carter, so that Ted Kennedy would win the nomination and win the presidency. This is not new in the parties that we're talking about, because I wrote about this in another one of my books, about those meetings by Democrats with the Russians to try and get them to tip the scale of the elections in the United States of America.
And while that has Cold War overtones, we would be remiss if we didn't point out earlier this week, from the podium in Philadelphia, the Democrats featured illegal aliens coming on stage, directly trying to influence our political process. Non-citizens who, well, I don't know, given what Jerry Brown has signed out in California, Michael, I guess those non-citizens would be able to vote if they're over 18, but heck, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, the notion of voter
you're better
fraud.
off here if you're illegal.
Yeah. We've talked about what has happened to California. And it used to be California was the trend-setting state. Is that happening again, away from fashion and culture now to the way the rest of this country will look in a few short years if Hillary becomes president?
Yeah, I mean, really, because what's happening, all of our kids, all the college kids, all of them, the Bernie Sanders supporters, are all being educated in school by leftists. That's exactly what is going on, and so they're the ones that grow up who end up voting, and that's all they know is what the leftists has in fact taught them, that being conservative is bad. The people who go out and create jobs, that's bad. Only you who really suck off the nipple of government are good at all. And I go back to my book, because I wrote one of the stories in my book, Lesson My Father Taught Me, about his father taking him around Illinois as a young boy, and showing him what happens when you can't get people to go to work because the government is starting to pay people not to work more so than doing work. And he said to his son, Ron, son, when they start paying you not to work, why work? And and that father of mine, Ron, taught me the same lesson when I was growing up. And that's what's going on now. People are getting paid more money not to show up to work than if they showed up.
Michael, I love your take on what happened at the convention last night. They had the father of a hero who died in combat overseas, I believe it was in Iraq, who happened to be a Muslim American, and they had his mother standing there and the father standing there, and the father was scolding Donald Trump as if Donald Trump did something to disrespect his son by calling for the scrutiny of Muslims coming into this country from nations that have a terrorist problem. Here's some of what he had to say. Let's watch.
You're asking Americans to trust you with their future. Let me ask you, have you even read the United States Constitution? I will gladly lend you my copy. Look for the words liberty and equal protection of law.
Again, it's this. First of all, I think that was a disgrace. It was exploitation of his son's service and death. And I don't know what the Constitution. Who thinks that people have a constitutional right or any right to come into this country if they're not Americans? No one has that right, and I don't know what this man was talking about, quite frankly.
Well, it really, I mean, the whole thing was sad to watch. I mean, God bless his son, Medal of Honor recipient, and what he did to save lives, that day, back in 2011 or 12, whenever it was. But then he used the parents and have them give a completely different definition of the Constitution. And again, we go back to the fact, if you go to school today, You're lucky to get one paragraph on the Constitution. Basically, the paragraph is, hey, this Constitution was written in Philadelphia, and this is what it was, and now on to the next subject. They don't really give you an in-depth, except their interpretation of it, that somehow, if you come here illegally, somehow, whatever it might be.
Yeah, they take the Constitution, Mike. Yeah, they take the Constitution, make it like silly putty. It's a living document that can be stretched and moved and reinterpreted, and that's part of the dynamism of the Constitution. Look, it has been a great discussion. Unfortunately, the clock is ticking away. Michael Reagan, author of the great new book, Lessons My Father Taught Me, The Strength, Integrity, and Faith of Ronald Reagan. Michael, we always appreciate your time. Thanks very much. Now, Steve and I will be back with more right after this.